Hi, Jen Psych. Welcome to a little discussion about facial expressions and attributions. When you walk into a classroom on the first day, you're kind of nervous about the first day, aren't you? And professors are a little bit too. There's kind of a lot riding on it. There's a lot of first impressions happening on that first day. We're getting a first impression of each other. I'm getting impressions of the students. Students are getting impressions of instructors. Do these impressions bear out? Are they accurate at all? That's the question. And in other words, can we in fact make snap judgments about people? Well, research suggests that we actually can. This is work called research on thin slices of behavior, where we get just a few seconds to get an impression of somebody. It turns out that those judgments are actually fairly accurate. So here's the kind of research they'll do. Students will watch a lecturer in a 30-second video clip, and then they'll rate that person on a variety of attributions, and they will compare those ratings to the ratings of people who are in that lecturer's class for the entire semester. And guess what? They're basically the same. So yeah, are we sometimes wrong about people? For sure. But are we right a lot of times? Yes, we often are. That's the work on thin slices of behavior. You know, babies love to look at faces. They love to look at faces the moment they're born. They're wired up for it. They especially love moving faces. They won't look at an image that shows eyes, nose, mouth, ears arranged in some kind of random pattern, but they will look at a picture like that where it's arranged in a face-like pattern for a very long time. Faces communicate all kinds of things. What our emotional state is, if we're interested in something, and if we're trustworthy. The eyes tell us a lot. Notice his eyes. He's got white around the eyes, and that is something that has evolved to make the dark part of the eye very, very noticeable. So from a pretty good distance, we can see other people's eyes and where they're pointing. We're constantly looking at other people to see where are their eyes pointing. Because if my eyes suddenly start pointing over there, what does that suggest to you? It suggests to you that something interesting is out there, and maybe that would be of interest to you as well. Young children quickly learn to make pretty good judgments about who's trustworthy and who's not. About the time they start to crawl, around 6 or 8 months or so, they start to develop stranger wariness, and they're afraid of everybody. You know, if they're 3 months old, you can pass them around. They're not afraid of anybody. By 6 or 8 months, they're very afraid of everybody. And that's because suddenly they can crawl and get away from mom and they might not be safe, but they don't yet know who's safe and who's not. So that starts to develop, and within a year or so, they will be back to being pretty good with going with other people. Another interesting thing about eyeballs, we're constantly looking at other people's eyes. The white part makes it very easy to see where people are pointing their eyes. That gives us useful information. Another bit of information it gives us is socially constructed, and that's eye contact. So I wonder, in your family, are you expected to make eye contact with your parent if they're upset with you? Do you expect to make eye contact with a teacher if a teacher is upset with you? Or are you expected to look down and away? Which of those, eye contact or looking down and away, is considered respectful in your culture? For the most part in the United States, eye contact is considered to be respectful. But there are some cultures around the world and even within the United States where that's considered very disrespectful. You'll see in lower socioeconomic status families are more likely to have the look down and away when I'm speaking to you as a sign of deference than you are in middle or upper class families. There are some Native American cultures where eye contact is considered disrespectful. Okay, a little bit about attributions. So attributions are our beliefs that we develop to explain human behavior and characteristics and situations. Okay, let me flesh that out and explain that a little bit more. Our beliefs that we develop to explain behavior and characteristics and situations. So, for example, here's an attribution I've been making lately. I went to Target yesterday. They have the best gluten-free pasta. We can't tolerate gluten at all. It makes us really sick. So I went to go get the gluten-free pasta that I like, that Target has, and it's pretty affordable. And the entire pasta aisle and all of the rice was cleared out. It was completely empty. Like 3/4 of an aisle at Target was just gone. And I was mad and upset that people are hoarding. And so I may have made a post on social media saying I'm so mad about people hoarding, and why can't you just buy one thing of pasta, which is all I wanted, and not buy, 10. And so I was attributing people's behavior as hoarding. Well, my friends made a lot of other attributions. One person said, well, people are home more, so they have to buy more. Another person said that people misunderstood the shelter in place and thought they couldn't go anywhere for a month, and so they bought a month's worth of food, and that's why there was no food on the shelves. Do you see that those are different attributions? I attributed people's buying behavior of buying lots and lots of certain groceries and items at the store as hoarding. Another friend attributed it to misunderstanding the rules, and another one attributed it to just simply needing more food. Okay, so those are different kinds of attributions. Now, I made a personal attribution. I thought that the people were being selfish, and that a selfish person engaged in hoarding. They were making situational attributions. Oh, they misunderstood what the situation was, or they just simply needed more. A personal attribution refers to the internal characteristics of a person, traits, abilities, mood, effort. Okay, it's about the person. And situational explanations are events and actions that refer to external events. Oh, we're in the middle of a pandemic and they didn't understand what the rules were. They thought they had to stay home for a month. Okay, that's a situational attribution, whereas I said it was selfishness, which is a personal attribution. So here's a couple more examples. So a personal attribution is mom yelled at me this weekend because she's so mean, or your friend didn't show up on time because she's thoughtless. That's a personal attribution. It's about the person. But we could make situational attributions. We could say mom yelled at me this weekend because she's stressed out from her busy time at work. Or your friend didn't show up on time because she was doing something disciplining her kids. Okay, so I've done this before. My friend stood me up at I gave her free tickets to the water park, and she was supposed to meet me, and she didn't show up for an hour and a half, which was really problematic because she kept texting me like every 5 minutes saying, oh, we'll be there soon, we'll be there soon. So I had to stand at the front gate and wait for her. And my kids wanted to go play in the water, but they were too young to be in the water by themselves. So my kids and I waited at the front gate for an hour and a half. And I made a personal attribution that she was being thoughtless and careless of my time. She, of course, was making a situational attribution. Well, it was just the situation, and I had to discipline my kids. So that sets the stage a little bit for the fundamental attribution error, also sometimes called actor-observer bias. We're likely to overestimate the degree to which it's a personal issue and underestimate the situation. So I made the fundamental attribution error both times. I said, oh, it's because of her. She was being, the hoarders are being selfish. My friend is being thoughtless. And I did not make the situational attribution. So here's an example. That's fundamental attribution error right there. Here's another situation. I see a guy spill some stuff at a restaurant, and I say, oh, he's a very clumsy person. So I tend to think that his behavior is caused by his internal characteristics. That's a personal attribution. And what I don't do is see sorry, my phone is being noisy. What I don't do is observe that there is some slippery stuff right here. And, it was a bad situation. There was slippery stuff on the floor. He couldn't help it. We tend to make this error. We tend to say, oh, he did that because that's the way he is. But whenever it's us, we tend to say, well, that's because of the situation. Let me think of one more example for fundamental attribution error. Something like somebody cuts you off on the road. What do you immediately think? You think, oh, they're a bad driver, don't you? What you never think is he's trying to drive his wife to the hospital because she's giving birth, or, that there's some kind of an external situation that might be causing the situation. Another attribution error we tend to make is called the just world hypothesis. We tend to think that the world is fair and people get what they deserve. So if we see the waiter get fired, we say, wow, he must be a really lousy waiter to get fired. And we ignore any other reasons, such as, well, maybe the manager is just a bad dude and wants to get his buddy in there as a waiter. I was talking with somebody the other day. She said that there were 3 people doing her job at her company, and 2 of them were fired, and she's been kept on. And she said, well, they weren't very good at their job. That's why they got fired. But I work hard, and that's why I'm still here. And, we would all say the same thing, wouldn't we? This is, and maybe it's true. But anyway, that's the just world hypothesis. Sometimes you'll see this with something like somebody gets mugged. Well, they shouldn't have been walking there, late at night in that neighborhood. That's just world hypothesis. Okay. So that's it for facial expressions and attributions. I hope you found this video helpful. So remember, the fundamental attribution error is where we overestimate that it's all about him and we ignore any situational factors. Just world hypothesis, we think that the world is fair and people get what they deserve. Oh, well, if you're going to be that stupid, I guess that will happen to you. We do things like that. So watch for those in your own thinking. That can be a helpful way to interact with the world in a better way.